Welcome back. Now, in a little over 5 months from now, Nigerians will be heading to the polls to elect a new president for the country. A total of 18 candidates will be on the ballot. One of them is Dumebi Kachikwu'S, who is the presidential flag bearer of the African Democratic Congress, ADC. Now, not a few people were surprised when Kachikwu'S defeated Kingsley Moghalu, Chukwuka Amonye, and 8 other aspirants to emerge as the presidential candidate of his party. And since then, many Nigerians have turned their attention to the businessman as he silently builds his reputation among the electorate. Now, Kachikwu'S emergence as the ADC presidential candidate, and in the manner in which many did not see coming, is the reason many believe he might have a joker up his belt. He's running with Ahmed Buhari, seen as a strategic choice of a running mate because of his popularity now among young people in the north. Although the candidate has been involved in a running battle with the national leadership of his party over their continued stay in office after their tenure had expired, his name still appeared on the final list of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, as the party's candidate. Joining me on the program right now is the candidate himself, Dumebi Kachikwu'S, to discuss the upcoming election, of course, and what he has in store for Nigerians. Mr. Kachikwu'S, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Let me very quickly start with the problem you have with your party. It's certainly not good to be having a problem with your party when you're preparing for an important election as this. Has the issue been resolved now?
Okay, thanks for having me on your show. Concerning my party, some people see the issue as a problem, but I don't see it as a problem. I think it was a way for me to tell Nigerians that charity begins at home. If I want to bring about structural changes in Nigeria, I have to start from within my party.
Exactly.
So I will not tolerate a situation where people want to violate the constitution of my party. The tenure of the immediate past NWC expired. It lapsed. And they wanted to perpetuate themselves in office. The past chairman had been in office for 17 years and wanted me to cooperate or assist him in further extending his stay in office, and I refused. I was elected by a majority of the delegates at the convention, and they expect me to do right by them. So I stood by the constitution. Obviously, they were not happy. They went out in the public space claiming to be the leadership of the party, claiming that suspended and expelled me. Obviously, if you no longer hold a position, you can't suspend or expel me. INEC has made clear their position that their tenure has lapsed, and we've since moved on. But that actually did help me because it put me in the eyes of the public.
Yeah.
That conversation was going on, and that's how I have seen it.
Perhaps what put you more in the eye of the public is the manner in which you emerged. Nobody ever gave you a chance to. Nobody ever gave you a chance now against someone like Kingsley Moghalu, the former. The former deputy governor of the central bank, and who had been a long-standing member of the party. Nobody ever thought you were going to do it. How did you manage to do it?
I don't think it was. I have been in the political space longer than Moghalu has. Moghalu has run for office before, but I have been in the political space longer than he has, and because he didn't have any real political experience. He was doing his politicking in the Twitter sphere, whereas I was doing my politicking with the delegates. It was a delegate election and not an election of the Nigerian public. And so as at the time we had a convention, most of the delegates knew me. They had met me, but majority of them were just seeing him for the first time. So, it was not really a contest, so to say, because he didn't have the political knowledge to know how to navigate a delegate election.
When you say you've been in the political space, a lot of people would say, look, before now, your name didn't ring a bell. Not until you contested and emerged the flag bearer of the ADC. So before now, tell me about your political antecedents.
So let me put it this way. As you are at this show right now, the person that the Nigerians know is the face of the show, and that's you. But behind the show, the success of this show, you have a director, you have a producer, you have a cameraman, probably have a script writer. So that's the role I have played typically in the political space. I have been there supporting, strategizing, backing people for the last 2 decades. I understand politics more than most of those people who were in that race. So when I say it was no contest per se in that sense, that's what I meant. Because I did understand what needed to be done in a delegate election, whereas most of them felt that they were pitching to the Nigerian people and not to the delegates.
Let's talk about what you're actually bringing to the table as far as this election goes. What exactly are you bringing to the table? Why would you want Nigerians to elect you as their president?
It's very simple. I'm about one of the only candidates in this space who is going to concentrate and discuss the issues and proffer solutions to the issues. In every sector, we have failed. We have failures in all sectors that determine the success of a nation, and we have failures there in security, in education, in the economy, in our healthcare, infrastructure. In all those sectors, we failed, and I intend to proffer solutions to our myriad problems in all those sectors. But before that, I am one of the only candidates who is speaking to the root cause of our problems in Nigeria, and that's our nationhood. Our problems started from when we were created, from our independence. We all want to run away from the issue that we call ourselves a nation, but we're not really a nation. We're people who've come together, but we don't have a common charter. We are all holding on to our ethnic enclaves, to our religions, to our tribes, but we don't hold on to the nation of Nigeria. The next leader Nigeria needs is the person who is going to bring Nigerians together as Nigerians under the green, white, green of our flag. We need to define a common charter for ourselves, a common objective, a common dream and vision that binds all of us together. That is what is going to bring or bet a new constitution that everyone will believe in. You see what happens in National Assembly now. You have people who go there and they cannot speak to federalism.
When you talk about a new constitution, are you saying that? Sorry to interject. When you talk about a new constitution, are you saying that one of your first assignments, if elected president, is to bring about a new constitution for this country?
One of my first assignments is to bring about a new charter that defines who we are as a people. That will in turn lead to a new constitution, because the people will then realize that what we have now does not serve the Nigerian people.
Let's talk. You did mention the issue of security when you were talking about the failures of government as we speak. Security, of course, no question, it's still a big issue, and it's definitely going to be a big talking point going forward from now till February, when the election would happen. What do you think is wrong with the security system of the country that needs to be fixed?
I think multiple things. First and foremost is the body language of Mr. President. When he came on board, he seemed to signal to his commanders in the field that he was tolerant of people coming in through our borders. He seemed to say that anyone who identified as Fulani, wherever they are in the world, that it's okay for them to waltz in through our borders. He seemed to say it was okay for people to go into our farms and take over our farms and our communities. Beyond that, the economy is also a major problem affecting the security of our nation. We have up to 40 million, 50 million people unemployed, and when people are unemployed, are not able to feed, out of desperation, they will do anything to survive. We have porous borders. We also have our diversity in Nigeria, where people who are divided by tongue, by religion, by tribe, right? That also contributes to the insecurity we have in our country. But the problems are the problems. How do we fix it now? In the short term, I propose that we need to draw at least 200,000 men and women from the civil defense and from the police to complement the war effort. Nigeria is the only country in the world that is at war, yet the people don't know that the nation is at war. If you read our papers every day, you will never see anything speaking about the war. But our troops are out there fighting every day. It's the only nation in the world where this is happening. The government tells the press, underreport this because you're not helping us by reporting it. But they are wrong. We need to let Nigerians know that there's a war out there.
I don't think the media is underreporting this. But let me just ask you this: when you say you're going to draw about 200,000 men from the civil defense and from the police, are you saying you're going to recruit more men into the police? Because as we speak today, the government is actually recruiting. The government has a target now to recruit about 10,000 policemen over, I think, over the next 10 years. So almost every year they're doing like. Yeah, close to 10,000 actually. I think they plan to recruit about 10,000 every year. They just about close to 10,000 just graduated not quite long ago. So I'm just wondering, so what is different that you're going to do? Because in terms of recruitment, the government is doing that. It is recruiting in the army, recruiting in the police. It's also recruiting in other security arms as well.
Let me correct you there first of all. You said that the media is not underreporting this. Can you tell me how many papers today reported what's happening in the war in the Northeast today?
I certainly would disagree with you. The media reports what happens in the Northeast. The media is not underreporting in any way. As a matter of fact, what people have accused the media of doing is that the media overreports and probably hypes some of these stories. So I'm actually surprised to hear from you that the media is actually underreporting what happens in the Northeast.
So let me explain this to you. In a war, every day there's action in the war. And what I'm saying is that the action that goes on in a war on a daily basis is not reported by the media because the military is not providing that information. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Unless you're saying the
military needs to provide that information.
What the military provides, the information the military gives. Because I know once every 2 weeks, the military gives updates now on security situation in the country and what it is doing. They just had one briefing recently and the media actually reports on that. Unless you're saying they're not giving the correct information, then that's a different thing altogether.
That's the point I'm trying to make. I'm saying that the Nigerian military is not giving daily updates. Put on CNN now and you see there's an update on the war in Ukraine. In any major international news medium, you are seeing what's going on in Ukraine on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. That's what happens in war. But in Nigeria, the opposite is the case because our military authorities are not providing enough information to the media. The media can only report information that they have, and that's a wrong strategy. Because if we were to provide that information to the media and the media lets the people know the seriousness of the war, the media lets people know that we have large swaths of Nigerian territory that is now called ungoverned spaces where we have foreigners hoisting their flags. If people know how serious this war is, people will have a different attitude to it. People might be able to contribute money or donate resources to the Nigerian military. People might say they want to volunteer their efforts to this war effort. Let me go back to what I talked about, men and women.
Yes.
There's a discordant tune between the military, the police, and the civil defense because the coordinating authority today is the NSA. Now you have a war where the police and civil defense can contribute at least 100, 200,000 men, which is what I will do, who are already trained in the art of carrying guns. A civilian, it will take a civilian 7 months to get to that point. It takes a soldier 3 years minimum to be battle ready. But at least the civil defense and police are trained in carrying guns. If we were to add 200,000 people to that war effort across the country, in the Northwest, in the Northeast, even in the Southeast, that will be a huge boost to the war effort today. The military are complaining of being under-personneled as we speak right now. That's one issue. Second issue is this. The government spent billions last year in armaments, in war armaments, in capex. In terms of the OPEX, the military are lacking funding. President Buhari inherited 100 billion naira internal security budget from President Jonathan. That budget has not increased by 1 naira in the 7 years he's been there. What is the exchange rate today? What's the price of diesel today? And I tell you this, the military hardly gets 50% of that budget.
Well, it's on record. The government says, but so, the government continues to maintain that, look, no other government has spent the amount of money it has spent on the military, especially in terms of acquiring equipment for the military. But that's just by the way anyway. So for you, you're going to recruit like 10, just as you said, 10,000 civil defense personnel now to join the effort now in the fight against the insurgency?
No, what I said is I am going to draw minimum of 200,000 personnel from the civil defense and the police, people who are already part of civil defense and police, to complement the war effort. Are you
sure you actually have that number? That's the question, because I'm not very sure we have that number as we speak.
I am sure of the numbers I speak of. That's what I will do in the short term. In the medium term, we need to start recruiting massively. We've approached this war in the last decade like the war is going to go away in 6 months or a year. And we'll watch this war escalate because we're not planning properly. So in the medium term, we need to start recruiting massively. Every day we lose men and women in the war effort. Understand that we don't know the true numbers of the terrorists and bandits we are dealing with. They are making money, hundreds of millions of naira on a daily basis from kidnapping and other things that they do. And they are paying well the people who are with them. So their numbers are huge. Whereas we're not recruiting at the same pace in our military. That's a big problem right there. So in the medium term, we have to increase the number of people. We have to bring in people. Understand what I said earlier on, it takes about 7 to 9 months to train a soldier, 3 years to get a soldier battle ready. So if we understand that in the medium term, we bring in people, start training, we have to plan for this war in the long term and not the short term. That's a mistake we've made. Number 3, we need to start approaching this war from a modern warfare perspective. If you watch what's happened with ISIS internationally, what they are using to take out these leaders, they are using drones and intelligence. In Nigeria here, you have an issue where large swaths of territory unmonitored. We talk about having drones out there. Have you ever heard that they used a drone to take out one terrorist in Nigeria? Absolutely not. We are not planning this war from a technology perspective. We don't have radar across the country that can monitor our country. We have people waltzing through our borders that we don't see. Tell me how many nations in the world that are at war and you don't see people coming in and out of your borders. That's absolutely wrong. Even in the city of Abuja, where we ought to have cameras everywhere, we don't have cameras. In every modern city, you ought to have cameras everywhere. We had about 2,000 cameras as at 8 years or 9 years ago. How many cameras have they increased? Let me tell you what you do with security. It's about policy. In every developed country, they make policies that complement security. In the UK, for example, you want to open a pub, you have to have, as part of your liquor license, you have to have cameras, inward facing and outward facing. If the school has inward and outward facing cameras, if everyone has inward and outward facing cameras, what does the government do? The government aggregates those cameras if they need to see anything. That's why even when you watch movies, something happens, you go, the police walking, oh, let me see your camera. Because the government can have eyes everywhere. But because there's a policy for you to have cameras in some places, it helps, it complements their efforts. In Nigeria, that's not the case. I've written policy 8 years, 10 years ago. I keep on talking about this. They don't do this. Take the banks. Do you know how many policemen we've lost in bank robberies in the last decade?
Anyway,
do you understand that most banks have cameras, inward-facing cameras, or even outward-facing cameras? Do you know those cameras don't tie into?
Unfortunately, we haven't got much time, but let's quickly touch on some other aspects now that, of course, that will be of major concern. Let's talk about the economy, for instance. You know, one of the major problems we're facing at the moment, of course, is the issue of Forex. You know, it's a big problem. Of course, the government has said, well, part of the reasons is because we're not producing enough oil. Oil, of course, is the major foreign revenue earner for us. How do you plan to address this Forex crisis if you were to be elected president of the country?
Well, oil is not the only thing we can export as a people or as a nation. Nigeria has multiple products, from services to solid minerals, so many things, to products, to goods that we can export out of Nigeria. The challenge we face in Nigeria is that we have leadership that just doesn't understand. They depend so much on oil. Take a place like India, for example. If we're looking for services today, you need the service of an architect or a designer or something, we get on Freelancer. Those platforms were developed and supported by the government because they were using it to sell the services of Indians all over the world. If you go to most telecenters, or if you call British Airways or most companies, you'll find that their telecenters are dominated by Indians. Why? Because Indians speak English. Nigeria is an English-speaking nation. We can provide telemarketing services to companies all over the world. We can sell engineering services from Nigeria. Someone who is graduated today can sell his services if he has broadband. Someone can sell architectural services. Nigeria is a country where in the last 2 decades, Nollywood has done us proud. Everywhere you go in the world, you can see Nollywood. How many film villages do you have in Nigeria? Why won't a major film studio come to Nigeria and shoot a movie in one of our sound stages? Look at agriculture. Anytime you fly across Nigeria, you almost want to weep. Look at the fertile land we have in Nigeria. Tell you what, every senatorial district in Nigeria should have an agro-processing park. How many agro-processing parks do we have in Nigeria?
That's what you're going to do.
In Nigeria, we still talk about subsistence farming. Tell you what, all over the world, people speak about agripreneurship. Farmers are some of the richest people in the world. In Nigeria, farmers are the poorest people. Our youths are leaving the villages in droves, going to populate the urban centers where we don't have any support system for them. Where they are leaving farming, that should be a mainstay, that should give them good money. But you know why? You produce cassava today, it perishes, there's no means of storing. You produce tomatoes, there's no storage, there's no processing facility. Imagine if in every senatorial district you had an agro-processing park where the people there are off-takers for what is produced in the farms. Imagine if we processed all we are producing. Do you know we could feed Africa, we could feed the rest of the world? 5 years ago, before the advent of COVID, I kept on warning this government about food security issues. I said to them, understand what we have as a leverage. If you don't understand that it's a leverage, what you have in Nigeria is a leverage for you, you make a big mistake. COVID came, I started warning the same government. Start taking agriculture seriously. It should not be lip service. Agriculture should not be a top to bottom approach. It should be a bottom to top approach. I designed CLAP in Nigeria. All the major institutions in agriculture came and endorsed my proposal. This government did not take it seriously. They didn't do it. Now we have a food security crisis in Nigeria. Now Nigerians, if you earn 50,000 naira, your 50,000 naira cannot take you up to 1 week. Inflation today is at 20% officially. That means unofficially it might be double that. Because we have an unserious government that does not understand what needs to be done. There's no state in Nigeria that is not self-sufficient or cannot be self-sufficient. Every state in Nigeria has solid mineral deposits underground and has the human capacity. That's the greatest asset Nigeria has. The Nigerian people.
Don't you think that the problem there is the failure of governance at the state level? That look, and this is what I tell people too.
That's what I'm saying.
You're very correct. That they are just not up and doing. So it's actually not the problem of the federal government. So as a president, it's not something you should bother about.
You're absolutely right. But tell you what, governors, presidents, all the same, all leaders, all failed. There's no difference. The governors, the president, all the same, all part of government, all failed. They can't see beyond their noses. They don't know what's happening in a cosmopolitan world, in a world that's a global village. These guys can't see beyond their noses. All they see is the money coming from the center every month. At the end of every month, that's all they see. That's all they see. Chinese are coming into Nigeria, taking over all our solid mineral belts, exporting this. And Nigerians don't know the wealth that leaves Nigeria every month. Billions of dollars in wealth leaving. We're talking about oil. Billions of dollars leaving. They bought over these rights. Rights that are jealously guarded by other nations has been given for peanuts to foreigners in Nigeria. And our youths are suffering.
All right.
Our youths are not being employed.
Let's quickly talk about
you go to some sites, you see.
Let's quickly talk about something else. Unfortunately, because of time, one of the biggest challenges that anybody who succeeds the current government now would have to deal with, any president that succeeds the current president would have to deal with, will be the issue of our debt. And of course, whoever the next president is will definitely be inheriting a huge budget deficit. How are you going to deal with that if you were elected president?
First thing I will do is renegotiate all debts. If you know, and I'm sure you know this, that most of the debts we have inherited, assumed, or created by this government, some of that money, a huge chunk of that money is going into private pockets. I will renegotiate all debts. I will do what Obasanjo did and renegotiate all debts, number one. Number two, as a businessman, you know that even if you're appointed the CEO of a company and the company is in debt, what you need to do is to increase your output, increase your IGR, increase your revenue, and start paying down your debts. We have the ability within Nigeria to pay down every financially responsible debt. We have the ability to do that. And all it takes is for us to increase our output at all levels, in every sector, increase our output. Let me tell you what Nigeria needs today. Nigeria does not need a hero. Dumebi Kachikwu'S is not a one-man hero. That's not what Nigeria needs. Nigerians keep on making the mistake of looking for one man who is a hero, like what some people are doing with the obedient movement. No. We're a nation of sinners in search of a saint. We need to be a nation of sinners who understand that everyone has to take personal responsibility for his own space. And when we start aggregating all our positive efforts, we have a better nation. This is what we must do as a people today. We stop looking for one hero who is going to save us. No, be the hero for your own space. Let a nation of heroes rescue Nigeria. That's what my rescue mission is about. Letting people know that you must do your bit as a Nigerian, as a patriotic Nigerian. I must not miss out in telling you this. For 4 decades, I've watched Nigeria. My father sold me the story of a nation not working. I'm not about to sell my children the story of a nation not working. The biggest issue we have is the leadership who is disconnected from those that they lead. You have a Minister of Education, for example, presiding over an ASU strike that's over 200 days, whose kids are probably done schooling in Nigeria. You have an ASU where the people, most of them, their kids don't school in Nigeria, where they hold 2 jobs. Now, in that situation, they hold 2 jobs. They are teaching in private schools where the children of the rich are going to. In public schools, those schools are shut down. There's a disconnect because they have no connection to those who they are leading. In every sector, be it healthcare, education, infrastructure, power, what have you, the failures we have are because those who lead us are disconnected. They don't feel the sufferings of the masses. What will I do? My first interaction with the next National Assembly, if Nigerians gave me the honor of being their next president, is a bill I call the Nigerian Patriot Act. It simply states that we're all in this together. In our failures, we share in our failures. We share in our successes. It says that if you are a public servant, civil servant, or you are director of a company whose operating license derives from the government, such as mining, broadcasting, banking, telecoms, what have you, it says that you, your family, you must use public schools. You must use public hospitals. It states that you cannot have a generator or a borehole in your house. It states that if you travel within Nigeria, you must travel by road unless it's an emergency. Tell you something. Just imagine a situation where Adenuga's children were going to LASU. Just imagine a situation where Tolumelu's kids had to use the public hospital. Imagine a situation where my kids
but are you going to force people to spend their money in the way that they do not want?
I will no. What I'm saying is that I will pass a law with the National Assembly. It's called the Nigerian Patriot Act. It's a law that says we all have to be patriotic towards our problems. We all have to share the problems. Our problems can't be the problems of the poor. The poor have carried Nigeria for too long. We need to stop this. My kids, let me tell you this up front. My kids are school overseas because our education sector has failed. But my kids understand that if daddy becomes the president of Nigeria, they need to come and suffer the poor education system in Nigeria, because I will lead from the front and not from behind. Well, some people
will say, well, for you saying that, you've not shown example at all. So if you've not shown example, why would you want to do that when you become president?
That's why I'm saying it's got to be done through law. It's not by saying example. Now you say, oh, I show example to tell my kids to be in a school in Abuja where the government has said schools don't open because of security issues. No. We have to make a law so that we all suffer from that problem. If we all suffer from the problem, we'll solve the problem. The best schools in the world are not necessarily funded by government. They're funded by rich people, by endowments. I'm sure you're aware of that. What are our rich people doing with their funds in Nigeria?
Okay, I'm afraid that's where we'll just have to leave it there. Unfortunately, Mr. Kachikwu'S, we do not have enough time. If we had enough time, we'd definitely continue. Unfortunately, time is not on our hands. I would definitely have some other time and some other day to discuss more on your plans for this country. But very nice talking with you, and thank you so very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so very much. Well, that's how much we have on the program this week. I thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.